Once upon a time in the ancient 80s, fantasy films were made. Fantasy films that didn't desperately cling to Tolkien's world or other pre-established franchises out of fear of using their own imagination. Fantasy films that were bright, colorful, and seemingly just dared you to deny yourself the pleasure of enjoying their sprawling worlds. Whether it was the dwarfish Willow and his care of a royal infant, young Jack's efforts to save the fair Lily from darkness itself, or the dread pirate Robert's battle against the rodents of unusual size, magic was alive in these films, and imagination roamed free. And then there was stuff like Krull. Alright, let's be clear here. This is not an awful movie, and I know a lot of people really like it. And no, it's not Tolkien-esque, and no, it's not based on an already existing franchise, even though there were a lot of rumors that it was supposed to be a Dungeons & Dragons movie. And I'm not trying to build up to some notion that it's not imaginative. It sure as hell is imaginative. It's just also not very good at it. The studio sure had high hopes for Krull though. Released in 1983, the film was one of the most expensive ever made at its time, and it had a ton of tie-in projects planned, and they even brought in Peter Yates to direct, who is probably most well known for directing Bullet starring Steve McQueen. Krull was clearly intended to be a huge smash hit. But who actually remembers Krull now? Who mentions it in casual conversation? I know it does have a bit of a cult following, but it's hardly on the list of must-watch fantasy films. And I figured we could spend this episode looking at it to figure out why. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Krull. The movie takes place a long time ago in a galaxy far away on a little planet called Krull where... Whoa, hey, cut it out! What are you doing, Krull? You're supposed to be a fantasy movie! I'm telling you, we're not doing anything Star Wars related on this channel until the new movie is out. You got that? Anyway, as a huge rock lands on Krull, a narrator tells us that it carries a being he calls the Beast, who has conquered untold worlds with his dark army. To combat this, Princess Lissa is set to marry Prince Colwyn to form an alliance between their warring families.
I didn't choose this marriage, Harold.
Nor did I, Eric.
Yeah, well, I chose it less than you did. Yeah, well, I chose it even less. Nuh-uh, yaha, nuh-uh, yaha, nuh-uh, yaha, nuh-uh, yaha, nuh-uh. It sure is a good thing that children are even more in love with each other than these two old farts are. They get married in a hurry, the kids that is, but the festivities are interrupted by an invading army. An army that has laser rifles. Hey! What did I just say about the Star Wars thing? Colwyn pulls all his best fighting moves out of the old Flint handbook, but the space invaders murder his father and make off with the princess all the same. Conveniently enough, however, Colwyn is then saved by a wise old man named Inir, who tells him that Lissa is being kept in the Black Fortress so that she can marry the Beast, and that Colwyn will need a magical weapon called the glaive to kill him and rescue her. And so the two of them set off to find this magical weapon. Alright, so far so good. A perfectly simple fantasy quest setup. There's no way they can screw this up, right? The old man then takes Colwyn to a cave to retrieve the glaive out of some kind of fiery water. Okay, now seriously, what the hell is that thing? It looks like a paper windmill without its stick. I guess it's my own fault for expecting, I don't know, an actual glaive? Then again, a big budget fantasy movie does need a logo, am I right? Colwyn is all excited to get to use his new weapon, but Inir pulls the old "you'll know when to use it" line and says that to find the Black Fortress they need to consult someone called the Blind Emerald Seer. On their way, they then meet a wizard named Ergo. A wizard of the less competent and kind of dickish sort.
There was a difference of opinion concerning a gooseberry pie. The man left it sitting on his windowsill. What did he expect?
Perhaps he expected to eat it.
For that rudeness, doubt. I think I'll turn you into a bat. No, that's a recipe for hot fudge sauce. Oh well, it'll have to be a goose. Fat and ugly.
Very fat, very ugly.
And from that to see what I could have done to if I were a vengeful man.
Okay, that actually was a pretty good line. And so they make their very first ally, seemingly out of pity. They don't manage to take 2 more steps though before they come across a gang of bandits, which includes Qui-Gon Jinn. Misa is getting a little sick of all this Star Wars in my Krull. Anyway, rather than fight, Colwyn convinces the bandit gang to follow him on his quest, promising that with his power as king, he will pardon their crimes and free them of the shackles should they succeed. The bandit gang agrees almost immediately, but none of them realize they're being watched.
Move!
Yeah, that Cyclops looks almost as disappointed as I feel at the lack of a fight scene here. I mean, am I the only one who thinks this was a little bit too easy? And because enough shit isn't going on, the Cyclops then saves Ergo from one of the beast's soldiers before leaving without saying a word. Ynir takes this opportunity to fill us in on who this Cyclops actually is.
He was aiming a spear straight at me.
Had that been so, he would now be dead. He was aiming at a slayer, for they have ancient hatred between them. Long ago, his ancestors lived in a world far from Krull, and had 2 eyes like other men. Then they made a bargain with the beast, who was the leader of the slayers. They gave up one of their eyes in exchange for the power to see into the future, but they were cheated. And the only future they are permitted to see is the time of their own death. They're sad, solitary creatures, born to know the day they will die.
Wow, that is actually some really interesting lore. What a great idea for a character. Plus, now we have someone in the group who has an actual personal grudge against the beast. That is, aside from he stole my girlfriend. Wow, that is really good. Man, I can't wait for his character arc to have a satisfying conclusion. So Colwyn, Ynir, Ergo, and Torquil, holy fuck that is hard to say, finally make it to the blind Emerald Seer. However, the beast is blocking the Seer's visions, and he can now only see the Black Fortress's location if he is at a place called the Emerald Temple, which is located in a swamp. Alright, this quest is getting super complicated, so I'm just gonna try to recap this real quick. Let's see here. In order to beat the beast, they need the glaive from the cave, but to use the glaive from the cave to beat the beast, they need to get to the Black Fortress. But to get to the Black Fortress and use the glaive from the cave to beat the beast, they need to see the Seer. But in order for the Seer to see what the Seer needs to see, then Seer needs to see it at something called the Emerald Temple, which is located in a swamp, the rare swamp, the rattling swamp, and the swamp by the bog, and the bog down in the valley, oh, oh, row the rattling bog, the bog down in the valley. Oh my god, it's so convoluted! Of course, they once again don't manage to walk 5 feet into the swamp before they're attacked by the beast's forces, and the Cyclops named Rael once again helps Ergo out and finally joins the gang for real. But of course, that doesn't mean the dangers are over.
I'm slipping! Hold it!
You know, it's funny. Right here, a bunch of grown men are drowning in the swamp, but when the same thing happens to one horse a year later, that's the scene everybody remembers decades later. Food for thought. Sadly, one of them doesn't make it out. And while all of this is going on, the Emerald Seer is killed and replaced by a mysterious doppelganger, with only the Cyclops realizing that something is wrong. And so it begins. Listen, if you've somehow managed to get attached to any of these characters, now is the time to brace yourself, because it is gonna get pretty Game of Thrones up in here. In fact... oh, trust me, we're going to need that thing. When they reach the destination, Colwyn and the fake Seer go right on ahead, but Rael, or as I like to call him, Useful Man, kills the fake Seer in an instant. Hey everybody, look! It's a bottle full of all the things that subplot accomplished. Ah, empty promises. So now that the Emerald Seer is dead, they can't find the Black Fortress. However, Ynir seems to know another Seer called the Widow of the Web who might be able to help them. Apparently she's less than friendly though, and Ynir, who seems to have some history with her, has to go ask her alone, leaving the group for a while to do so. Another Seer, huh? Alright, boys and girls, get together, huddle up, it's time for story structure class. Alright, let's break this quest down one more time. To find the bad guy and rescue the princess, the heroes need a seer to locate his stronghold. For this purpose, the wise man of the team knows two seers, one he trusts and one he fears. So of course he goes to the one he trusts first, but sadly he is killed before he can use his powers, forcing Inir to go to his second option. But this is where one simple story structure question comes to mind. Why not see the Widow of the Web first? Yes, Inir is afraid of her due to a previous conflict, but what was the point of the Emerald Seer character? That entire plotline accomplished nothing but getting our heroes to meet the rest of the party on the way, and there's zero reason they couldn't have done that on the way to see the Widow of the Web instead. We haven't even seen her yet, but just knowing Inir has a dark past with her already makes her much more interesting than a stock old wizard archetype. This makes the Emerald Seer just a walking talking piece of filler, both in the movie and in this video, since his entire existence caused this rant that has now caused everything to come to a screeching halt! And there's still half a movie left! Speaking of pointless shit, the Beast tries to make Colwyn cheat on the princess with a girl he planted there, to convince the princess to marry him instead. But apparently said girl fell for Colwyn in an instant and she can't get herself to kill him.
These talons were a heartbeat away from your throat. I could have killed you in an instant. But in the hour I knew you, I loved you.
It is you who are betrayed. Power is fleeting. Love is eternal.
No! It is I who is betrayed, for the subplots are fleeting and the length is eternal. Drop the shit and get to the point. I mean, Inir, how's Inir doing on his quest? See what I mean? All this exciting shit that actually moves the plot forward is happening, but we're wasting our time on 10-second love affairs. What the hell? So as it turns out, Inir and the Widow, whose true name is Lissa just like the princess, were once lovers. But Inir left her to serve the king, after which she killed their son out of spite and was thus cursed to become the Widow of the Web. As the two come to forgive each other, Inir appeals to their former love, and as she reveals the fortress's location, she gives up her remaining life force to allow Inir to escape the web and save not just the world, but the love of a different couple at the cost of both their own lives. Okay, remind me why this movie is not about Inir again? I mean, that right there, that is character, that is story, that is an old fart in a green bathrobe drowning in a mud pile. Know the goddamn difference! With his dying breath, Inir informs the group that the fortress will appear in the desert and dies in Colwyn's arms. To get there in time though, the Cyclops says that the gang must catch creatures called fire mares. But he will not go with them as it is his time to die if he does.
Each to his fate.
Krull, I'll ride with you.
I have to stay here, my friend.
We had no time.
You had a whole 30-second conversation at one point in the movie. If random monster girl can fall hopelessly for Colwyn in 10 seconds, you two could get freaking married. Anyway, time to ride some fire mares and holy shit! Ho ho! Can I get a hell yeah and a guitar riff, please? I gotta admit, that shit is pretty metal. But like all good things in this movie, it ends quickly as the gang arrives at the fortress and leave the mares behind. Weren't those horses flying just a second ago? Why don't you okay. As the gang climbs the rocks, they come under fire by the Beast's men. But that's when Rael arrives out of nowhere, clears a path for them to enter the mountain, only to be crushed between the rock walls for his efforts, thus accepting its fate for the sake of his newfound friends. So now that that character arc has reached an incredibly anticlimactic conclusion, let the slaughter begin! Hey, check it out! I found this list of reasons the movie has given me to care that these guys are die, and it's empty. During the entire battle, Ergo and Titch, the little kid, get separated from the others, and Ergo finally gets his time to shine.
Finish him. Animality.
So, while everyone else is dying agonizing deaths all around him, Colwyn uses the glaive and finally finds Lissa and attempts to rescue her. Oh hey look! It's a list of all the times that thing could have come in handy during the movie. Let's just... Oh! Inir, you may be the best character in this movie, but man, you give some shitty advice. But now the final confrontation has come. Colwyn approaches, and we finally get to see the beast in its true majestic form as they both prepare for battle. But you know what? It doesn't matter. He may look stupid, but I'm sure the fight is still gonna be totally epic. Well, that was a bit of a letdown. Yeah! Okay, so the fight is a little longer than that. Due to their love and the fires of their vow of marriage, Colwyn suddenly gains the ability to absorb the beast's flame and send it right back, vanquishing the beast for good. Hey husbands! Remember that time being married gave you superpowers? That was fun. Naturally, the fortress begins to collapse, but all of our surviving heroes manage to escape just in time as the movie comes to an end.
I think it's time you unlock those manacles, huh?
Well, I thought I'd keep them as a memento of our journey.
Well, the key's yours.
Only the king and his lord marshal carry this key.
That's right.
All my friends are dead. All my friends are dead.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Krull. Ah, boy. Where do I begin? Look, I know I just gave Krull a lot of shit in this video, but don't get me wrong. I don't hate this movie. In fact, there are many things about it that I love. It's complete unashamed fantasy. It just throws whatever it can imagine at you, and it has no worries about being a classic battle between good and evil. And you know what? Nowadays that's so damn rare that it's really refreshing to see, actually. And it's not that this movie isn't full of good ideas, but that's actually where the problem is. It has way more ideas than it knows what to do with. Every cool subplot, every character that shows an interesting side of themselves, and any interesting monster barely has any real effect on the story. All of these ideas that could easily have made amazing fantasy films on their own, are dropped entirely for the sake of a truly vapid main couple with absolutely no personality. And rather than focus on any of the wonders we see in this world, the movie just slaughters as many characters as possible to give the illusion of drama without ever letting us get to truly know them. Well, aside from Inir, that is. I really want to love Krull, I really do, and there are some great scenes in this, but ultimately I can only really recommend it for its cheese factor, and for being one of the few fantasy films that truly loves being a fantasy film. It at least deserves credit for that. Well, this has been Fiction Addiction. I'll see you guys next time. Hello there guys, and thanks so much for watching my giant rant on Krull. If you liked this video, it'd be great if you could subscribe and leave a like and a comment. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, and there are links to all of these places in the description. And if you really just can't get enough of me and my ramblings, here are a couple other videos that you can go watch. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. But to use the glaive from the cave to beat the beast, they need to get to the black... The beast! Hey everybody, look! Oh hey, look! It's a list of all the reasons the movie has given me to care that these guys are Oh, it's also flying away.